Welcome back to the channel, guys. In the last video we talked, I showed you stripping down one of the driver's doors, I think it was, getting all the parts bagged up ready for preparation to get these doors into epoxy primer. For years I was using aircraft stripper with methylene chloride in it, and that stuff worked amazingly well. And I think around 2 or 3 years ago methylene chloride strippers have been illegal and no longer available in the States. I think all around the States, not just California. From my experience, please let me know if you've had any other experience with it, but it's completely hopeless. You might as well just use harsh language on it. I mean, it really just doesn't work. Anyway, so this video I just wanted to show you my method of getting the paint off, not chemically, and obviously not sandblasting and all that. I'm not going to get into all that business. Seems like a royal pain in the butt to me, but and obviously I want to do it myself anyway, so I'm left with mechanical removal. Now basically you wouldn't want to start sanding this with really aggressive paper, for instance, because you'll introduce a lot of heat into the panel. Not so much close to these parts, but in a middle panel like this you could end up with heat distortion. So I want to use a method to remove the paint as quickly, as effectively as possible, but without removing metal. Now, I'm not affiliated with any company on this YouTube channel, so this is just from my experience. I've watched other YouTubers, tried their methods out, and this guy recommended these Scotch-Brites removing a meal scale prior to welding, and they work amazingly well. These little stripper discs, you've seen them, almost looks like a Rice Krispie bar. They come in all forms, different qualities, you know, from different manufacturers, sure. This is a 3M one. This will attach to the grinding wheel, but you can get larger discs. I just happen to use this because it enables me to get into smaller areas. If I'm in a really small area, I'll use my angle die grinder with little mini 2-inch roll lock versions of this. I use this SCT removal tool, conditioning tool from Eastwood. Again, I'm not affiliated with any of those guys. I got this some time ago, and the stripping drum I found worked okay, but because you're a fairly broad surface here, it didn't seem as effective as this. This is a smaller surface and seemed to cut better. But anyway, it worked okay with the stripping wheel, but where this really comes into its own is for conditioning in the metal prior to getting a little teeth into the metal for conditioning it ready for epoxy. Now I am going to use a brand new disc. This is brand new out of the box. Okay, lock that on there. I just wear a glove because the motor gets kind of hot, and I like to move around a lot. I don't want to keep it on one area for a long period of time as you introduce too much heat. I am going to put my mask on. So, ready on the stopwatch? Off we go. Okay. Always wear a mask, obviously, so you don't suck this stuff into your lungs. Okay, let's see. Stop. Yeah, 7 minutes. So what I'm going to do now, so that, and you can see not really much wear on that disc, so it gives you an idea how long they last. Pretty durable discs. I would say one of these could easily do a couple or more doors myself. Anyway, so that's that. I'm just going to wipe the panel down with some acetone, get the grease off of that, and then we'll go on to the next stage, which is the SCT conditioning tool. Obviously this panel is going to get washed multiple times before it ever sees any product whatsoever, so just doing this so that there's not a lot of residue there to clog the next tool. So as I say, this is a conditioning tool disc, or drum I should say. I don't put it very high. I got it set on number 2 speed. Don't have to go crazy. And what's nice, this curve, when I angle the tool, it gets into this curve of the metal quite nicely. This just takes 2 or 3 minutes, I'd say. I'm really not putting a great deal of pressure on it. I'm just letting the weight of the tool move me around, because this is a fair lump of machine. So as you can see, it brings up the metal really nice. I'll try and bring you in for a close-up. It's got a kind of crisscross pattern there, some etching. You see a few little dark spots here. Those are areas that probably like little low spots kind of thing, I guess, but it comes up beautiful. Puts a nice scratch in it, ready for the epoxy. Now I will double check all these before they see epoxy, of course. All the edges I can go over with my Scotch-Brite pad, and on the inside of the door that will get heavily scuffed up, with a aggressive Scotch-Brite pad, so that can be coated on the inside as well. Right, so let me blow that off with the air line. We'll go over with the acetone. You can obviously use wax and grease remover or lacquer thinner. This is just what I had at hand for this little demo here, so wipe that down. What's nice, I'm not coming across any body filler in any of the doors, which is absolutely awesome. There's an extremely minor dent in here that we'll see if we can dolly out, because my goal is to use little to no body filler. Well, whether that's going to be feasible, we will see, but I'm going to do my best to do that, really for my own little challenge, really. So that's cleaned off, and then because it's going to be still some time before I prep all these ready for epoxy, I've got 4 doors to do, inside and outside. Obviously I've got the trunk lid, the 2 fenders, and the engine lid, the engine hood. So I want to get all those, and also of course the engine bay, all prepped just like this, right? And that's obviously going to take time. I took the day off yesterday from woodwork to do this, and today, because the missus is not feeling well, I snuck outside. So she's watching telly. So anyway, so because this is going to take a long time, we obviously got to preserve it and it doesn't flash rust, and that's where this acid etch comes in, where it's really good. It's an acid phosphate or some such, whatever. And I got this little Scotch-Brite bag pad in a bag here. I give it a little scrub down, get that really worked in, and it will give it a protective coating, all the steel protective coating, until we're ready to epoxy them. And when that day comes, I will wash them all down several times, wax and grease remover, and check that we've got a good, I'm going to triple check that the conditioning disc is leaving enough of a scratch for the epoxy. We'll make 100% sure of that, because you've got to make sure your base is good, haven't you? And then seal them all up. And then we can move on. I just basically want to get them sealed up so we can move on to the next stage of many welding repairs further down the car. Just gently wipe the surface, do your edges, see all that. It's just residue. But look at that panel, isn't it lovely? Look at that, 50-year-old panel, 50-year-old steel. Lovely job. And again, I'm really happy. I've not found filler in any of the doors. So, bonus. So that is how we're going to leave that one. In the next few days or so, I'm going to flip it over and start prepping all the backside. As you can see, this was white at one point. I gave it a cursory wipe down, but for some reason they didn't even take the clips out. They just sprayed over everything, you know. So that indicates the other doors were always blue, because they did this one like that. This is the door I originally repaired some time ago, but we made all this, remember, that was all rotted out, this was all rotted out, and that I threw some copper primer on, wiped it off with acid etch. It's been sitting around for nearly a year, and you can see that protects it quite nicely. That's all good, ready to go. I do have to trim this lip back a little bit because we're getting a little tight at the end here for the body seal. Before I go, this is obviously the rear trunk lid. Now this is one that I had as a spare one for some years, and it turned out to be a better trunk lid than the original 6.3 one. See this folded edge here? Okay, on the 6.3, this had some brazing done along there, and it was very splotchy, and it was all the way along, and it looked kind of yucky. And this one has been not molested, which is nice. If you remember in some videos some time ago, I did have to weld up some of the holes in this one, because this came from a 4.5 and the badging is slightly different as far as, you know, 300 SEL as opposed to 280 SEL, 4.5, 6.3. The holes were, can't remember which one now, I think a hole at this end needed welding up because it was in the wrong position, and so that's already done. I've taken all the locks and everything off, and I'll just be Scotch Brite in the inside of this and re-blacking it, but the main concern is obviously the top surface, which has all been stripped down and been done some time ago. So I'm going to prep that, make sure that that looks good, and then set this off to the side. Now this has been sitting like, I'm going to try and get rid of some of these dark spot, little rust line there, something got spilt on it. But this had that phosphate coating put on it. Man, it's got to be a year ago now, and you can see it's not rusted except that little area. I'm not sure what that is, and one tiny spot here, but you can see it really works nicely to protect the bare steel. So I'm going to just quickly buzz over this, and that'll be it for the day. Also, one more thing before I go, I wanted to follow up on a video that I put out some time ago, and I ended up pulling it because there was some incorrect information on it. Now there is, do you know the area right by the front engine hood, right down by the hinges, there's a little rubber grommet there. Now I was mistaken. I always thought that was a drainage plug there. I was completely wrong. It's the same thing as the back plug that we talked about in the past. Those rubber grommets, I was talking to a guy on the Facebook group, and we went back and forth, and I confess I was wrong. I assumed those were you know, like the little drainage plugs they put in, similar to in the back trunk wells, but they're not. They're for the rust treatment at the plant to escape through those holes, you see, and drain out so it doesn't pool there and come all down the side of the car. And at the factory, those little plugs go in there and they're sealed off. They're not meant to have water come in there. But the second part of the video, where the drainage part of the box section did have a hole, that is there in case moisture got there and it could drain safely out. So I wanted to correct that because I didn't want to lead anyone astray. But also back to the door seals again. I know you've heard me before, but I've got my 108 out there, and I took a chance on those Turkish door seals, right? And honestly, you might as well crunch your money up, throw it in the trash. It would be less irritating actually, because once the money's gone, it's gone, isn't it? But having those things is a reminder that you've just wasted your money every time you open the door. And what I've done, I took one of the door seals, I think I mentioned it in the last video, off of the drivers of this. Yeah, and it was old, it had a few cracks here and there, but still had some body to it. It wasn't all crumbly. I thought, I took that off careful, I fit it onto my 108. It's beautiful. It clunked into it almost clicked into the channel. It was so firm, so solid, million times difference really. And so I'm very happy about that. Save some money. Obviously I'll replace it in time, but that works now, because I was opening and closing the door, damn seal was falling off. And here's the seal that I'm going to throw away. Let me see if I can give you a close-up. Make sure I've got focused here. Bear in mind, this seal is about, let's see, about 3 years old. Look at it. Crumbly mess. Powdery. Bits falling off of it. Absolute garbage. Sorry I go on about this, because I just don't want anyone to waste their money. Save up some money for some good seals, because look at that. That's appalling, that is. Make sure we got focus. And I tell you, the one on the car now, heaven knows how many years that is, the one that I've put on there from the 6.3, and it fits beautiful. So there you go. These guys can make drones, but not very good at seals, I guess. Anyway, well, I hope you enjoyed this episode. I've got a lot of sanding and conditioning and wiping down to do, a lot, but it's stuff that I kind of am used to doing, this kind of work with the furniture game. So I like to see the slow progress moving along, you know, and stage by stage chipping it off, you know, ticking it off the list, and seeing these in epoxy will be really exciting. So thanks a lot for watching, guys. Not sure what the next video will be about, so please stay tuned. Please hit like, share, subscribe, and take care of yourselves. Bye bye.